Hello everyone, welcome to Cope UiPath. It's me Rakesh Gupta and today we are going to talk about state machine. So if you have used ReFramework or if you are aware with the ReFramework, then you must know that entire ReFramework is built upon state machine. So before going to ReFramework, we should understand about the state machine. So let's understand what is state machine. So just take an example of traffic signal. So traffic signal will have three lights, right? Red, green and yellow. So let's say the traffic signal is currently red. So now it will change its state and it will go to the green. So now we have to think that on what condition the traffic signal will get changed from the red to green. So either it could be triggered on the time, let's say on every 1 minute or on every 2 minutes it will change its state from red to green, or there could be a scenario that it's having the AI model, and if it will see that if large number of vehicle is there, so it will change its state from red to green. So now with the same concept I am going to discuss about the UiPath state machine. So for that, either I can type here a state and I can drag and drop this state machine from here, or I can go to new and from here I can choose the state machine. Okay. Now as I have taken the state machine, so now I can see here there are two things, state and final state. Okay. So the best thing is that it has only two state and final state. And how you will differentiate between these two, state and final state? So if I can show you, so in the state it is having a key symbol. Okay, so this defines that it's a state, and in the final state we can see something round, so this will be the final state. So now we have to understand that if I will connect this state from the start node, so you can see I am getting an error message saying that a state must have at least one transition. Means what? Means how to create the transition? I can simply drag and drop like this. So now I have created a transition. Means if this particular state, let's say I am giving a name here as state 1. So if I have to go from state 1 to final state, then on what condition I will move from state 1 to state to final state. So like I have given you the example that if the signal is changing from red to green, so on what condition it will change from red to green, right? Either it could be a time based, or it will observe the number of vehicle on the road, then it will change its state from state 1 to state 2, right? So here on this, if I will open this state, so here I am getting three things. First is the entry, exit and transition. So entry means if I will enter into this particular state 1, so what I will do, I mean what the application will do, so that thing we will define into the entry. Then if you are going out from this state, then what you will do, means let's say you have to close the Excel application, or you have to close the database connection, or something like tear down. So this thing we will write into the exit state. Okay. And entry means once we will enter into this state, then what we will do, I will give show you example. By this example it will be more clear to you. Now we have a transition. Transition means if I have to move from this state to this state, so on behalf of which what I will move, so that thing we can define into the transition. So if you will go into the transition, so here I can define the condition, and this will be the trigger. Okay, and this will be the action. If you have to perform any action, then we can do it here. So let me take your example. Let me delete this. So what I am going to do, I am going to take the input from the user, and with that input we will divide some number. So for that, let me take a state, and here I am marking it as an initial state, init, and here I will take the input from the user. So let me take an input. So by this example you will understand it clearly how it works. Okay. So the title could be anything, enter any number, label let me put enter number, and whatever the input user is giving, I'm just going to store it here into user input. Okay, and let me change to integer because I'm expecting the integer input from the user. So now you can see in the init state, on the entry part, I have written the code to take the input from the user. Okay, now as of now, escape this exit part. Now what I will do, I will take another state. So let me take another state, and here I will divide. Okay, now once I will connect this to a start node, so I will start getting an error message because every state should have at least one transaction, right? So let me connect this. So now it's a transaction 1. So I will define the transaction 1, that on what condition it will go into the transaction 1. So here I am defining that user, okay, let me increase the scope. I'm changing the scope to entire state machine, and now here I am defining user input is numeric, or let's say user input is not equal to 0, because if we will pass the 0 number, then we will unable to divide it, right? So if the user input is not equal to 0, then only I will move to this divide state. And here what I will do, let me take a assign activity. So here what I will do in the value part, let's take any number 10 mod user input. Okay, so I'm going to divide the 10 from the user input, and I will assign it here any value, let's say int 1. Okay, and it will be of type integer. Okay, now here we are getting an error message because it should have at least one connected state, right? So now I will take a final state, and remember one thing, for the final state there is only entry criteria, there will be no exit or transition. Like for the divide, you can see we have 3 things: entry, exit and transition. Okay, so now I can simply connect it like this, and this is how what we have built. We will take the input from the user, then we will divide it by the user input. We will divide the 10 by the user input, and then we will go to the final state. So you can see, if we have to move from this init state to divide state, so what you have to do, you have to check that whether user input is not equal to 0. So let me show you, and let me take one more condition here. Let me take one more transition here. So here what I am going to do, I am going to define this T3 condition as user input is equal to 0. Okay, so if the user will pass the input as 0, so in that scenario, let me name it properly here. Instead of T3, user input is 0. Okay, and here I will write something like, okay, let me correct the spelling mistake. User input is 0, and here what I will write, not 0. Okay, so if the user will pass 0, then it will go back again here, and it will ask the input from the user, and if he has passed not 0, then we will go into the divide state, and here we will do the division, and then we will move to final state. So now let me run it. So it's asking for the input. So let's say I'm passing 85. So now because I have passed 85, it has gone to divide state and then final state, and my execution is end. Now if I will run it again, and if I will pass it 0, so it will again ask for the input, because I have defined my state machine in such a way that if user will pass 0, then it will again ask for the input. Okay, so now let's recall whatever the things we have learned. So one moment, yeah. So for the any state, there are three things: entry, exit, and then transition. So in the entry part, whatever the things we will define, once your execution will start, then once it will come into this particular state, it will perform this operation. Then if you are defining the exit condition, then once it will go out from this particular state, then it will perform that operation. Let me take a write line or message box activity to just show you. And here I will write, I am leaving this state. Okay, so once it will go out from this state, then we will execute this line of code, and then after this state machine, whether it has go to this part or again this part, so that will be decided by this condition. If the user has passed not 0 value, then it will go to divide state. If the user has passed 0 value, then it will again go to the init state. Okay. And if you will talk about the transition, so in the transition we have three things: trigger, then we have the condition, and then we have some action. If you want to perform some action, then you can write it here. So now if I will run this time, so what will happen? Now we have defined the entry as well as exit. So if I will type 76, so it's saying that I am leaving the state because we have defined something into that part, and then it will go out from this. Okay, so now we can see that state, there are only two state and final state. How you will differentiate between that? So final state will have a round circle, and all other state will have a key symbol, right? Okay, every state should have at least one transition. Now in the state we will have three things: entry part, exit part, and transition part. Transition will decide from this state where we have to go, so that decision will be taken based upon this transition. Now final state will have only one entry. As you can see here, it's having only one thing, entry, right? And you must include final state, then only your state machine will be completed. So in any state machine, one final state will be there. Then transition. So in the transition there are three things: trigger, condition, and action. So though we have the trigger, condition, and action, but mostly we use condition and trigger. Okay, so now if I will show you the ReFramework, then you can have a better idea. Let me show you the ReFramework now. So now if you will see the ReFramework, then you will have a better idea that initially we are into the initialization state. Now it has two transitions, right? Successful and system exception. If it's a successful, then it will go into this get transaction data. If there is a system exception, then it will go into the end process. Now once we will be here in the get transaction data, if I will open this, so you can see here again we are having three things, right? Let me minimize this. Yeah, so you can see we have the entry part, then we have the exit part, and then we have the transition part. Okay, so if the program have to leave this get transaction data, then there are two conditions. If it is not having any data, then this transition will get triggered and we will go into the end process. If it is having any new transaction data, then it will go into the process transaction, right? Now we will come here. These all are the transition, right? These all are the transitions: success, business exception, system exception. So if it is success, if I will open this one, so you can see here we are having three transitions: system exception, business exception, and success. If we are getting any system exception, then we will lead to initialization state. If we are getting any business exception, then we will go to get transaction data state, right? And if we are success, then we will go to get transaction data, right? So in this way the state machine works. So I hope I am able to clear the concept of a state machine. So if you have any doubt, you can put it into the comment section and I will reply to that. And if you are liking my video, then please press the like button and hit the subscribe button. Thanks.